The car was a 2009 Honda Civic, in a color the dealership had called alabaster silver and that everyone else would call gray. Shaquille O'Neal had borrowed it from a production assistant named Kevin, who was 24, and had a pine tree air freshener hanging from the rearview mirror and a back seat with 3 different phone chargers and 1 missing floor mat. Shaq folded himself into the driver's seat the way a person folds a letter that is too large for the envelope, with patience and the pragmatic acceptance that something, somewhere, was going to crease. His knees were 3 inches from the dash. His head was 2 inches from the ceiling. He adjusted the mirror. He put on the magnetic delivery sign, a red and white rectangle, Presto Pizza, clipped to the roof, and he drove away from the staging area on Clement Avenue in Orlando, Florida, on a Thursday evening in August, as the sun went low and orange over the parking structures, with 4 insulated bags in the back seat and a full 8-hour shift ahead. The rules had been his own. No security. No second car. No earpiece. He would take the orders the way they were assigned, drive the routes the way they were given, knock on the doors, wait the wait, and accept whatever came. He had arranged it through the owner of Presto Pizza, a man named Domingo, who had opened the restaurant 14 years ago on a corner that everyone told him was the wrong corner, and had been right about it ever since. With one condition: the staff would know, but the customers would not. He was not there for content. He was there because a conversation 6 weeks earlier had put an idea in his head that he could not get out without testing it. The conversation had been with Dr. Renata Price. He had been telling her, in the particular shorthand that develops between 2 people after 11 months of sessions, about the way recognition changes a room, about how a person can walk into a space and the space reorganizes itself around their presence before they have done a single thing, and how exhausting it is to never know, in any given interaction, whether what you are receiving is the thing itself or the room's reorganization. "Doctor," Price had said, in her exact way, "what would you learn if the room didn't know who you was?" He had sat with that for 6 weeks. Then he had called Domingo. But before you understand what happened on that shift, and the specific delivery, the 4th one, that made him pull over and sit in the gray Civic for 17 minutes before he could drive again, there are 3 things in place that Thursday evening that you need to see first. The first was a message. 6 words, sent via the app's driver communication function at 7:22 p.m., from a customer at 44-117 Lakeview Terrace, a name listed as R. Hollenbach, please be on time tonight. Important. 6 words. No punctuation on the period, which is how people type when they are distracted by something larger than the sentence. Shaq read it at a red light. He noted it. He kept driving. The second was a uniform shirt, red, polyester, printed with the Presto Pizza logo, in a size that did not exist in Presto Pizza's normal inventory because the normal inventory topped out at 2XL, and the shirt Shaq was wearing had been ordered by Domingo from a specialty supplier 3 weeks earlier as a size 6XL, which meant the Presto Pizza logo sat slightly lower on the chest than it was designed to, and the collar had the subtle gap of a garment doing its patient, structural best. The shirt mattered because of what it did and did not communicate. It communicated: delivery driver, hourly wage, service worker, person whose name you are not required to remember. It did not communicate 4 championships, $400 million, 52 years of specific, patient, paying attention. These 2 categories are, in the average front door interaction, mutually exclusive. He was about to find out which one the shirt ran. The third was a name, written in black marker on a piece of masking tape affixed to the inside of his wallet, tucked behind his driver's license, in handwriting he had put there himself 2 days before the shift. The name was Philip Harrison. He had put it there because Philip's rule lived on a wall at home, and he wanted it available in a pocket. He had never done this before. He did not know exactly why he did it for this particular night. He would understand later. Now here is what you need to know about Shaquille O'Neal before the doors start opening. He was not naive about service work. He had grown up watching his mother do it, the specific way you hold your body when you are being paid to be pleasant to people who are not always pleasant back. The specific economy of energy required when your patience is a line item in someone else's bill. He had watched Lucille manage this with a precision that looked effortless from the outside, and that he understood only after the kitchen counter ledger with its dried rubber band and its 67 enoughs to have cost something that did not appear on any paycheck. He had watched Vivian Lattimore, 2 floors up, carry food down the stairs and frame it as reciprocity for 6 years without ever losing the dignity of the framing. He had watched Sandra coach in a gym that underpaid her, without once letting the underpayment reach the children. He had watched, across 52 years, the specific way that service work is either seen or unseen by the people on the receiving end, and how the difference between those two outcomes is entirely the choice of one person, the person at the door, and costs them nothing to choose correctly. He drove the first 3 deliveries without incident, a couple in their 60s who tipped 20% and said thank you. A single apartment where the door opened and a 20-year-old in headphones handed him exact change without looking up. A house where a woman apologized for the barking dog and gave him $4 and a leftover piece of birthday cake in a Ziploc bag, which was, he would say later, the best part of the shift. At 7:41 p.m., he pulled onto Lakeview Terrace. The house at 44 Scene was the third from the corner, a 2-story craftsman with good bones and a lawn that was doing its best under the specific drought conditions of an Orlando August. Shaq parked in front, took the 2 bags from the back seat, 2 large, 1 medium, garlic knots, the full order, and walked to the door. He was wearing the red shirt. He was carrying the bags with both hands. He knocked. The door opened after 11 seconds. Not immediately. 11 seconds. The specific pause of someone who has come from somewhere else in the house and is arriving at the door with a prior mood already loaded. The man who opened it was somewhere in his late 40s, in a polo shirt with a logo Shaq did not recognize, with the particular stance of someone who manages something for a living and brings the managing home in his posture. His name was, per the order R, Hollenbeck. He looked at the bags first. He looked at Shaq's shirt. He said, "You're late." He said it without inflection, not accusatory, not angry, just the flat statement of a person delivering a fact that they expected and that confirms something they already believed about the category of person standing at their door. Shaq said, "I apologize for that, sir. I have your order here." He had checked before he knocked. The delivery window was 7:35 to 7:50. It was 7:41. He was, technically, early. Hollenbeck took the first bag without acknowledgement. He opened it, looked inside and said, without looking up, "This isn't what I ordered." He said it the same way. Flat, certain, the tone of a person who has decided before examining. Shaq said, "I can check the receipt against the order, sir." He set the second bag down and began to go through the items, naming them against the receipt, methodically, one by one. Everything matched. He showed the receipt. Hollenbeck looked at it and said, "That's not the sauce I specified." He said it with the conviction of a person for whom the category of error is more important than whether the error occurred. He looked at Shaq's shirt and said, "Can you even read the receipt?" His English, he stopped. He did not finish the sentence. He did not need to. The pause and the look were the sentence. The room, such as the front step was a room, went very quiet. Shaq held the receipt. He looked at the man. He did not change his expression. He did not change his posture. He did not speak immediately. He stood there, the way Philip Harrison had stood in every room Philip Harrison had ever decided to be still in. The particular stillness that is not the absence of something, but the presence of a decision. And he let the silence be exactly as long as it needed to be. Then, he said, in the same even tone he had used for the entire interaction, "The sauce on the receipt is the sauce that was ordered. I can read it fine." He held up the receipt. He pointed to the sauce listed. He set the receipt in the bag. He picked up the second bag and held it out. Hollenbeck took the second bag. He said nothing. He looked at Shaq's face for the first time, fully, not the shirt first face second scan of the doorstep transaction, and something moved behind his eyes that was not quite recognition and not quite discomfort, but lived in the neighborhood of both. He said, "How much is it?" Not a question. Shaq told him. He went inside for the money. He came back. He counted out the exact amount. He said, as he handed it over, "I'm a big fan, you know. There are sentences that contain a full autobiography. This was one of them." Shaq looked at him. He said, "Thank you for the order." He picked up the empty bags. He turned and walked back to the Civic. He sat in the Civic for 17 minutes. He was not shaking. He was not angry. Or he was, underneath, in the specific place where things are true before they are processed. But he was not expressing it, because the masking tape strip in his wallet was doing what the masking tape strip was always meant to do. He sat in the front seat of a 2009 Honda Civic, with his knees against the dash and the pine tree air freshener swinging very slightly, and he sat with the full accounting of what had just happened on that step. He thought about every person who had ever knocked on that door with a bag and not had a slip of paper in their wallet with Philip Harrison's name on it. He thought about what the interaction cost them in a way it had not cost him, not the immediate cost, which they absorbed the same way he had absorbed it, but the accumulated cost. The shift after shift weight of a category of disrespect, so routine it does not need to announce itself. He thought about how the "I'm a big fan" had arrived, not as an apology, not as a reckoning, but as a credential, as a reason why the preceding 3 minutes should not count. As if fandom were a retroactive permission slip for the sentence that was not finished. He thought about Domingo, who had opened a restaurant on the wrong corner and been right about it for 14 years. He thought about Sandra, who coached on Saturdays without complaint. He thought about Lucille's ledger and the 67 enoughs and the specific way that dignity in service work is not something that is given by the person at the door. It is something that is maintained at personal cost by the person holding the bags, and that the cost is real, and most of the people paying it never have a slip of paper with a reminder in their wallet, and it costs them the same. He pulled away from Lakeview Terrace and finished the shift. He did the 4 remaining deliveries with the same manner he had used for the first 3, present, specific, unhurried. A family with 3 children who treated him with the automatic warmth of people who have done service work themselves and recognize the uniform as a person rather than a function. A man in an apartment who insisted on tipping 30% and said, "I used to do this, man, I see you." An elderly woman named Mrs. Fortuna who asked his name, used it twice, and said goodnight with the specific courtesy of someone for whom courtesy is a practice and not an occasion. He drove back to the staging area at 10:47 p.m. He gave Kevin back the keys. Kevin asked how it was. Shaq said, "Educational." Kevin said, "Did anyone recognize you?" Shaq said, "One person." Kevin said, "And?" Shaq said, "He was a big fan." Kevin, who was 24, understood from Shaq's tone that this was not a good thing. He nodded and did not ask more. There is a follow-up to Lakeview Terrace that Shaq did not intend and did not orchestrate, and that arrived, as the things in this series have a way of arriving, from a direction nobody was watching. Domingo's daughter Valentina was 22, working the prep kitchen that Thursday evening, and she recognized Shaq the moment he arrived because she had grown up with a poster on her wall, and because recognition at 22 arrives faster than at any other age. She had said nothing during the shift because Domingo had asked the staff not to. But she had, at the end of her own shift, posted one photograph to her personal account. Not of Shaq, not of the car, not of anything identifiable, just the red shirt. Hanging on the hook in the break room where he had left it, with one line of text beneath it, "Tonight somebody famous worked a full shift at my dad's restaurant because he wanted to understand something. He didn't tell anyone, he just worked. That's the kind of person he is." She tagged no one, she named nothing. The post had 14,000 shares by morning. Domingo called Shaq the next day, slightly alarmed. Shaq told him not to worry. He said, "She told the truth." He paused. She told the truth about the shirt. Nobody told the truth about the step. He said it without self-pity, without drama, in the specific tone of someone doing an accurate accounting of what was and was not visible from the outside. Then, he said he wanted to do something for the drivers. Not a gesture, something structural. He had spent 17 minutes in a gray Civic doing the accounting, and the accounting had a number, and he wanted the number to matter to the people who earned it every shift. He set up through Domingo a tip-matching fund, contributions from the foundation, dollar for dollar on every tip, for every driver on every shift, for a full year. He did not announce it. The drivers were told through Domingo, quietly, the way Vivian Lattimore had been told about the food, not as charity, not as a story, but as a fact of the new landscape, effective immediately. The first week, a driver named Terrence, 11 years at Presto Pizza, 2 kids, a commute that started at 5 a.m., brought home enough in matched tips to pay his daughter's after-school program for the month. He did not know where the match came from. He knew it was there. He came to work the next Thursday, the same way he always came to work, early, with the same held-together dignity of a person who shows up before they are asked. But something in his posture, Domingo noticed, was a fraction lighter. Not the load. The load was the same. Something in the carrying of it. Shaq heard about this from Domingo 3 weeks later. He sat with it the way he had sat with the ledger, with the voicemail, with the folded photograph at the bottom of Elijah's bag. The things that matter in this world rarely announce themselves. They come in Honda Civics and pine tree air fresheners and red shirts that don't quite fit. They come in the specific weight of a bag held with both hands at a front door where someone has already decided what category you belong to before the door is all the way open. He is a big fan. He should have been. He should have shown it 11 seconds earlier when the door was opening, before the checking and the receipt and the sentence that stopped itself but didn't need to finish to say everything it meant to say. He should have shown it the way Mrs. Fortuna showed it, and the way the man in the apartment who used to do this showed it, by recognizing that the uniform is a person and not a function, and that the person holding the bags has a name, and that saying the name and meaning it is the only credential that actually counts. Do not be a reaction. Be a response. He had put the name in his wallet so he would not forget on the steps of Lakeview Terrace. He did not forget. He would not forget the step either. Tell us where you are watching from, and have you ever been on either side of that door? Have you ever been the person holding the bags, or the person who opened the door and got it wrong and knew it. We read every single comment. If this story reached something, let the like button carry it, not for the algorithm, because Terrence showed up before he was asked, and he deserves to know his story was worth telling. Subscribe to this community if you haven't yet. Every person who joins makes the next story possible, and the next one is already waiting. We will see you there.